Now we're recording. Now, last week we got up to the Mishnah of Rabban Gamliel. That's where we stopped. So that we're gonna take it up today. So look it up in the when it says the Mishnah 10. I mean, where number 5. Where it's always chapter 10. And this case is the Mishnah 5. So Rabban Gamliel would say, that's the one we're looking for. And so the first part of this one, you probably recognize it from the seder. All right, this is a text that actually we got it all the way to the seder up to this day, right? So Rabban Gamliel would say, anyone who did not say the 3 matters on Passover has not fulfilled his obligation. Pesach, matzah, umaror. I mean, the lamb, the Passover lamb, matzah, and the bitter herbs. That we read that from the Haggadah. And the rest of the text is also like as it is in the Haggadah, right? When it says, now elaborates, right? It presents those 3 things, and now it's going to elaborate them. We'll say the partial lamb is brought because the omnipresent passed over, like as you will never notice, passed over the houses of our forefathers in Egypt, as it is stated, that you should say, it is the sacrifice of the Lord's special offering, for he passed over, and then you have the rest of the verse, the house of the children of Israel in Egypt, when he smote the Egyptians and delivered our houses. Right, so the first element is Pesach. That, of course, today we don't have it in the table. So we have a symbol of it. What's the symbol of it? The bone, right? The shining one in the Haggadah. That's the symbol that we have. So we point to it and says, we're going Pesach. Then we continue, and it says matzah. Why matzah? Because our forefathers were redeemed from Egypt, as it is stated, and they baked the dough that they took out of Egypt. And the rest of the verse, as cakes of matzot, for it was not leavened, and they were thrust out of Egypt, and could not tarry, neither had they prepared for themselves any victual. That's an interesting word. Never heard that one. I know the word in Hebrew, so I know what it means, but I never heard that word before. Victual.
You're not from the Beverly Hills.
No. Okay. Beatles.
It's another word for me.
Yes, not even you guys can agree on it. So what can you expect from me?
Don't pronounce the C in this word.
No, but not only the C, but you say Vito, is it pronounced?
No, it's colloquial. It's not proper pronunciation. We just shorten it to
Okay.
Beatles.
Like the Beatles?
But I have to look it up to see if it's properly pronounced the way you spell it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not even. That should prove how cruel is the English language with those that we don't grow up with. That things are never read the way it's supposed to be read. Yeah, well, that's the good thing with Hebrew, actually. The Hebrew is you've read it as it's written. I mean, it's when you learn to read it, you can. That's what it is. Okay, and the reason for bitter herbs, the maror, is because the Egyptians embittered our forefathers' lives in Egypt, as it is stated, and they embittered the lives. The rest of the verse, with hard service in mortar and in brick, and all manner of service in the field, all the service that they made them serve was with rigor, of the farech in Hebrew. That the connotation of farech is even beyond rigor. It's like it was hard, it was unfair. In the rabbis define that actually what it was, one of the rabbis, his opinion that what it was pointless work. And that, of course, for me, connects with the whole idea of whoever is familiar with Viktor Frankl about meaning. Now, the problem with the slavery in Egypt that they were not building pyramids as sometimes we used to think, also because chronologically it's not right, but also because they were not building monuments. They were not doing something good that they would be proud of. You know, you see that 50-feet statue of Ramses over there? I did it. I helped. No, they were just doing things and they will work it out. And then do another. It was a pointless job. It was a completely pointless job that they also broke their soul because they didn't feel any pride or any productivity out of it. At the beginning of the Torah, that's what it said. To build 2 cities for Pharaoh.
Paving streets and putting up houses.
I suppose. I mean,
Sewer system, electric lines.
sure, of course. Installing the internet, everything, yeah. In any case, so
Now,
yeah.
You said the river, the word river in Hebrew, what was
the
it?
Farech, when you see,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, you can see the Hebrew here in the text. You have the text in Hebrew there. Yeah.
That's the same
Kilo
river.
means actually you don't have the word here. But in the text of the Haggadah, you have only the beginning of the verse, not the whole verse. So you don't have the word the Farech in the Haggadah. Now the rest of the verse in the Torah. In any case, so then we continue and say, now to have boiling water, somebody wants something. I'm gonna give you permission. I will get
Oh,
one.
that one.
So there is this coffee and this tea here, if somebody would like to. For the same price. You might even be able to bring something.
From this, you want to read this? One here. I don't know. No. No. We are here. We are here. He's talking about. Over here.
That's a big olive can over there.
I was asked about that friend I did.
It says here April 20th. April. April. Good man. Mark, that you're being great city.
Yeah, I know, I had it. And it's giving me flowers and everything.
All right. Now that I can give one class for a cup of tea, so now we can continue. That's my so then the Mishnah continues and says the whole text that we also have in the Haggadah. By the way, you can look at the Haggadah here. You have a few copies. This is the whole dor vador. In each and every generation, a person must view himself as though he personally left Egypt. As it is stated, and you shall tell your son on that day, saying, it is because of this which the Lord did for me when I came forth out of Egypt. That's the origin of the whole idea of the Haggadah. The Haggadah, Haggadah. And you will tell them, they come from the same shorish, the same root in Hebrew. Lehagid, like to tell. You should tell your son. So we say in every generation, each person must say, this which the Lord did for me, and not this which the Lord did for my forefathers. One of the main points of the seder, of the whole idea of having the Passover seder, is the idea that of the state of mind, maybe we should say, that this is not something that happened in the distant past. It is not history. this is something that is meaningful for us as well. That we are part of it. That we should have to feel as we are part of those that left Egypt. And the Mishnah continues with the text of the Haggadah, and this is the part when we raise the cups. I always imagine like a little, like doing like a lechaim, like. And therefore, we are obligated to thank, praise, glorify, extol, exalt, honor, bless, revere, and love the one who performed for our forefathers and for us, forefathers and us, all these miracles. He took us from slavery to freedom, from sorrow to joy, from mourning to festival, from darkness to great light, and from enslavement to redemption, and we will save it for him. Hallelujah. And then we start saying the Hallel. We say the first two Psalms of the Hallel. And so there is, for example, a nice commentary that I like personally. It's simple, but I like. I think I heard from the first time from my rabbi's wife in Chile before Menalia. Why do you need so many verbs here? Why he used so many different verbs to say? I mean, we must thank, praise, glorify, exalt. And by the way, we have that text also in Shabbat. We have the same verse in Shacharit of Shabbat. First, like a plurality, like the first amount of verbs. So she used to say, because everyone has a different way of reaching God. Everyone has a different way to do that. So we're trying to honor the plurality of ways people have either to reach God, or to praise God, to have their own connection with God. So we're trying to have as many different ways as possible.
In the beginning of this, we were talking about working like with family, So,
yeah, right. Well, last time.
So, we have to feel the same way as our forefathers. But I think every year we work like this before Pesach. We get ready.
We're slaves.
Get the house ready.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, we can sing Abadi Mainu and everywhere.
and then to praise, because
We're done.
The advantage of having seders in the Kushla was that your fingers were sore from cleaning the oven, and you were tired from all of the preparations on the first day. Second day, we did it again. And
Yeah.
That all that was like, and then the second was actually really fun to be the second seder. Someone didn't deny that seder.
because
Yeah.
Yeah.
I, for one, I'm very happy to have only one seder, even if it was very useful to have two seders, because usually when you are still a young family, so you have your parents and her parents, and it's like, so one seder you are with one family, seder with the other family. So that's solve an issue. Now, I mean, we don't have that issue anymore because I have to be in the shul. But before we got married, so it would be every year, like 1 year with Raya's mom, and about 2 years with dad. And it was a good thing to make my parents to live in Israel, because then they will be like, we will see one set of parents every 4 years, like the World Cup or something. So yeah, it's
the second seder.
yeah, second night.
The night after,
Yeah.
not at the end of
No.
The Rosh Hashanah.
Right, it'll be like Rosh Hashanah. We do 2 nights in a row. Also, in Hutzlaret, it was very common that a lot of people wouldn't do the whole 2 sederim. So we'll have like the first night they do have a real seder with their families and whatever. The second night you have a community seder. So you had to do it. Nobody really wanted it. So it was an opportunity for people to come to the shul and pay to somebody else that organizes. And so you have a community seder. That also was I remember living one of those in England. It was a tough experience because so a lot of people that they don't listen to you. Okay. It's one of those things that are hard to lead.
Or
And
you had your English Yes, your English. Yes.
Right, that's another thing. And so you see the commentary here of Dr. Kulp that we remember that we talked about him last time. So this Mishnah that we're learning now has become a liturgical text. So it's interesting because it was a Mishnah. A Mishnah is not liturgy. A Mishnah is actually a legal text. The Mishnah is principally a book of law. It is the oral law put into writing. Then, of course, that's a different issue. How oral law becomes writing. But that's what a Mishnah is. The Mishnah is a legal text. And here, this legal text became liturgy, became part of a prayer situation of a religious book that it was not meant to be, and it became that. And really, it has part of this since the Haggadah was written. And you see that in the Mishnah, Rabban Gamliel, by the way, was a very important sage in the time of the Mishnah, in the time of the Tanaim. The title Rabban means that he was also the president, the leader of the Sanhedrin. And he demands that we explain the three main food in the table. It's like he says, all right, if we have all these special foods in the table, we should talk about it. We should we shouldn't ignore them. We should be clear about why they're there. So one thing that I always used to think about is that he said that because he mentions the Pesach, right? Pesach. And so some scholars thought that this is Rabban Gamliel that lived when the temple still stood. There are a few Rabban Gamliel. With the sages, in the Talmud, we'll have the issue that a lot of times have the same names. So we have to figure out we're talking about the one that lived in the 1st century, or the one that lived in the 3rd century, or the one that lived in Babylon, or the one that lived in Israel. And that we try to figure out by the context. Mark, you wanted to say something? Oh, no, okay. So because of the Pesach, we usually used to think, or a lot of people think, that this is Rabban Gamliel, the first one. Like he lived when the temple was standing. Actually, there are some people that believe that this Rabban Gamliel met Jesus of Nazareth, and he actually was one of his teachers. So we're talking about that period, the 1st century. What the problem we have with that assertion? Why, according to most modern scholars, this cannot be that Rabban Gamliel? We mentioned that last time. Apparently, during the time of the temple, there was no seder. There was no Pesach seder. So if he's telling us a text that should be said in the seder, so it looks like it cannot be Rabban Gamliel, that Rabban Gamliel. It has to be the other Rabban Gamliel. So one of them, for example, Dr. Koch, is more likely that this Mishnah represents a post-temple reality. And this is the same Rabban Gamliel who he already encountered, who believed that the Pesach can still be eaten even without a temple. Meaning it looks that for many, we said it, but I'm going to say it again because I say this is something that sometimes we overlook. It looks that for many years after the destruction of the temple, people still ate a lamb in Pesach, roasted lamb, as it was done when the temple existed. They didn't stop doing it before of the destruction of the temple. With time, the other process happened. That at some point, they decided, probably in Ashkenaz, the rabbis in Ashkenaz in the Middle Ages, that it was not a good idea to have roasted lamb, because people might think that we're doing the sacrifice of Pesach, not in the temple, that we're not allowed. So they said, okay, you can eat whatever you want in Pesach except for lamb. So then we started having chicken. But well, and to add to the fact that really the Shulchan Aruch, I mean the 16th century, like most authoritative book of halacha, prohibits to eat lamb in Pesach. And there's still some Sephardi groups that they do the lamb, especially the Yemenites, that they still eat the lamb in Pesach. So the idea that the ritual here, this ritual replaces, as best as possible, the loss of the temple. So when sacrifices can no longer be offered, then word, study, and prayer take their place, and that's how we rebuilt Judaism after the destruction of the temple. Any comments or questions at home or here before we go on to the next part?
I don't think this is quite the right spot for it, but what matzah actually was in those days.
Mm-hmm.
But now, okay. Every
Bueno,
year,
Pesach matzah b'moreh?
every year, throughout the year, when they made bread, they took a part of a tenth of it and set it aside, and the rest of it they bake into bread.
Mm-hmm.
The tenth that they saved had the yeast in it as a starter for the next loaf of bread that they would make. And so they always had some set aside. Over the period of a year, that would start to get a little iffy. Okay, so that every year in the spring, Nisan, they would start from scratch. They wouldn't use that batch any longer. They would have the bread rise somehow or another on its own, and then they would start saving that again. But when they had to leave Egypt in a hurry, they didn't have time. This was before they had enough yeast to set aside.
I mean, there was not yeast at all. It was like natural. Yeah.
Awesome. So it was that time of year.
That's very cool. That's interesting. What I think is if we're already talking about that in relation with this, is that the matzah in the time of the Mishnah and the matzah for many years, it was not the matzah that we know that look like crackers. It was more look like a lafa, like a tortilla. That was the matzah.
You know, I had in the army, I was stuck at a base. That was the prisoners we were guarding, and it happened to be our Pesach. And we had matzah, but they brought the bread that they're used to. It was flat loaves of bread. It looked more like the traditional matzah we were talking about. We had our crackers, and they had their flat bread.
Yeah. We think also of the matzah, like a square matzah, because that's when they started doing matzah by machines, part that is machine matzah. But it was easier when you do it like by hand. It's more round. That was in pictures or things like that. Or you buy shmura matzah from Chabad yeah, that also works. Yeah, that will also come back when we speak about the korech. So that's not in the Mishnah, but we do in modern times, right? The korech is a sandwich, right? When we take one matzah, we put in a maror, a little bit of charoset, just because, and then another matzah, and we eat it like a sandwich, and everything gets dirty because it's a cracker, so it breaks up and there's crumbs everywhere, and it makes much more sense when you think that it was this flat bread that you just do the things there and you roll it and you're actually having a burrito instead of a cracker. It was really, it was like like a lafa. That's what you were having. It was mamash lafa when the temple existed. It was like the meat from the sacrifice of the lamb, shawarma, like the meat of the lamb, the bitter herbs. It was like lettuce, a little bit of charoset, and that's what you did. It probably was very good. The thing that I also like to take about the korech, we're kind of digressing a little bit, but it doesn't matter. Is that so you probably, or maybe you have ever heard, and if not, I'm pretty sure that some of you would like to tell this story of how the word sandwich came to be. right? Are you familiar with the
Lord's,
Lord Sandwich, right? He was a gambler. He didn't want to stop for eating. Put some bread, in the middle, and it became a sandwich.
That way you get grease on the card, so they wouldn't be marked.
Right, right. So when Eliezer ben Yehuda wanted to find a word for sandwich, because obviously there was no sandwich in ancient times, so he needed a Hebrew word for sandwich. So he said, "Oh, well, we have this thing that we eat in the Haggadah. It's called korech, karich, and that's how the word karich came to me." Ken Mark.
I just want to say that on a number of occasions I had a Yemenite matzah, and it's soft like a laffa.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, where do you get this? They ask here.
No, it's with my late wife's family. We had a seder there, and she was Yemenite, so therefore I.
But they will make them. They will make them up.
Yeah, they made them. I think I think they made them, or else they bought them at some place that specialized in Yemenite foods.
read the recipe.
No, the recipe is very easy. The issue is making it.
Yeah.
It's water, flour, and have 18 minutes to put in to make it.
Soft spongy thing.
Yeah, same idea. Only they ferment the bread on purpose, but it's fermented. That the thing.
You need to spread it out, in something where we make it, wrap it around the stick, and that is just flour and water and a little salt. There it is.
Yeah. All right. So the thing is that in terms of the Mishnah, what we just read, that's the Maggid. That's it. The whole thing that we do today with the 4 children and the Mizrashim and other rabbis in Bnei Brak and all those things that we do in the Maggid, they were not there. They were later additions. Now we'll get to them at some point. It's very good. Yeah, yeah.
Four daughters.
4 women.
Yeah.
That were appropriate.
Yeah.
And the beautiful captive.
Yeah.
So they captured women as
It's a part of, it's a verse, yeah, it's a
they had to mourn
from the Torah.
they lost their parents for a period of time, and then they could be your wife. And so they had 4 women.
Send me this.
Okay.
On WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Okay.
They wrote it, the person that wrote it, Inat Ramon,
Mhm.
she was the dean of the rabbinical school when I was studying, so I know her well. Well, yeah. Anyway, so that's the Maggid. But now, the next Mishnah, we're gonna see that we're gonna discuss actually a technical issue about the Hallel. So the question that they ask is, to where does one recite Hallel? So it looks that the rabbis, even already from the time of the Mishnah, they were clear that, okay, one, you say Hallel during the seder. You're supposed to say Hallel. To if some of you don't know it, are not familiar, it's a prayer that we recite for festivals in general. We added like for Rosh Chodesh, for Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, for Hanukkah, Yom Ha'atzmaut. Even until this day, the discussion between Orthodox and non-Orthodox people whether to say Yom Ha'atzmaut or not. And the rabbis already, of course, it was already a thing in their time, and they said you have to be recited during the seder. The question is, okay, we won't want to recite the whole Hallel before we eat, because it's still a little bit long. We're hungry, so we want to split it. So the question is, where do we split it? That was the question in the Mishnah. So now maybe it would be a good idea if you want to look at in the Haggadah. Yeah. You can look there. you should find the issue with the thing with the Hallel. Yeah. Not the part that is called Hallel. And I'll look towards when just before you drink the second cup. That's where you're gonna find it. All right. So just before you also you drink the second cup and you eat the matzah. So if you find the part that says lefichach, it's just after that when we spoke about all the verbs. It's our duty to thank, praise, loud, glorify, raise, blah blah blah. Just before after that. The 10 plagues, no, it's not too hard. After that, a little after the 10 plagues. Yeah, after that, yeah, that we just read, a little after that. Video. So after that. Yes. Matt, do you find it? All right. Moshe, do you find it? Okay, great. Can you tell the page for Matt? Matt, he has the same page. It's
The four sounds?
no, not the first sounds. The Hallel. It's just after. Okay. It's not. I mean, because they're translations, it's not exactly the same. Pesach Matzah, Rabban Gamliel. Pesach Matzah Umaror. B'chol dor v'dor. לפיכך. Okay, hallelujah. Yeah, page 100, 100. I think it's 100. Oh, no, yeah, exactly after that, because you do the Hallel, so that's it. All right, so the first psalm of the Hallel is Psalm 113. Right? So the Psalms, yeah. Yeah, I said at the bottom. I'm saying no, that's the first one. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Abdei Adonai. Hallelujah, all servants of the Lord give praise. That's how we start. Two Yud Gimel, exactly. So now I go, don't lose it, we're going to read the Mishnah today. So I said, until where that was Resit Hallel. So Beit Shammai say, until who makes the barren woman dwell in her house as a joyful mother of children. Meaning, Ad Ema Banim Smecha. Meaning, until the end of this psalm. You see the end of the psalm, it says, Hebrew, Em Abanim Smecha, hallelujah. In English, some version of, he sets the childless woman among her household as a happy mother of children, hallelujah. So the Shammai said, you only read the first chapter, the first psalm of the Hallel. And then Beit Hillel says, until who turned the rock into a pool of water, the flint into a fountain of waters. Meaning the second chapter, the second psalm of the Hallel. That one we know very well, because that's the one that we always sing. Betzet Israel Mitzrayim. That's Psalm 114, Uf Yud Dalet. So Beit Shammai said you do only one paragraph, only one psalm. Beit Hillel says you do two. You do two psalms. The flint into water and waters. Okay, and the Mishnah, of course, they don't decide it. They don't give us an answer. I don't even, to be honest, at this point, I'm not 100% sure if the Talmud decides the discussion or not. Remember the Talmud making it much more complicated because as they always do. But I don't remember if they decide or not. But you know that at the end of the day, in most cases, we do as Beit Hillel, and therefore we do the two of them before we finish the Nagi. Yeah, the first one and the second one, Betzet Israel, until the end of that part. Of course, why the discussion here is like we want to do less or more. We want, if we do more now, then we are hungry and we're gonna eat later, but then we don't have to do so much later. If we do less now, so we can eat sooner, but then we have much to do afterward to complete the halal. So it's really that's the question. And one concludes the section of halal with a blessing that refers to redemption. And this blessing is a blessing that a lot of times we kind of overlook because it's a blessing that's only exists in the Haggadah. We don't say this blessing in any other time. But it's kind of a kiddush. It's like a kiddush for the second cup. And it's in the main subject of the blessing is the issue of redemption. So Rabbi Tarfon says that although one should recite, "Who redeem us and redeem our forefathers from Egypt," one who did so would not conclude with Baruch Atah Adonai. So Rabbi Tarfon says we should start with Asher Ga'alnu Be'Ga'al et Avotenu Mimitzrayim, but then you cannot finish at the end Baruch Atah Hashem Ga'al Israel. That's the idea of Rabbi Tarfon, the first rabbi here in the Mishnah. And the second rabbi, Rabbi Akiva, says that one should have a different version. It says, "So too the Lord our God, the God of our fathers, will bring us to future holidays and festivals in peace, happy over the building of your city and joyous on your service, and there we will eat from the Paschal lamb and other offerings, etc., until blessed are you, Lord, who redeemed Israel." Now, what do you think at the end the rabbis did? Who was right? Well, you have it in front of you, yes. So what did they do? They mixed them to do both. You know, you are right and you are right. But you cannot be both right. And you are right too. Yeah. So that's what they did. So they make this blessing using both. So we start saying, "Blessed are you, Lord God, King of the universe, who has redeemed us and our ancestors from Egypt." That's Rabbi Tarfon. "And enable us to reach this night that we may eat matzah and maror." So Lord our God and God of our ancestors, enable us to reach other holidays, and that's Rabbi Akiva, and festivals which come peacefully upon us, rejoicing in the rebuilding of Zion, your city, and joyful in your presence, in your service. There we shall eat from the offerings and Pesach sacrifices, whose blood we will acceptably place upon the wall of your altar. We shall thank you with a new song for our redemption and for the liberation of our soul. Baruch Atah Adonai, blessed are you, O Lord, who has redeemed Israel. So we took both of them and we mixed them. And then we do Borei Pri Hagafen and we drink the wine. So this is a kind of a kiddush. It's kind of a kiddush. It's a blessing that we do together with the wine before we drink the second cup of wine. Only it's an sui generis ad hoc kiddush that we only do in the Haggadah, only for the second cup. We don't do in any other situation. The kiddush that we did at the beginning from Kadesh with the first cup is the normal kiddush that we do every festival. So that idea here. So Professor Kopp, Dr. Kopp says about this, is that the Mishnah is concerned with the recitation of the Hallel at the Seder. The Hallel, again, just being more clear than I am. It's a group of Psalms from 113 through 118. That's what it's called Hallel. And it's recited on the three festivals, Pesach, Sukkot, on Shavuot, on Hanukkah, and on Rosh Chodesh. And I added also Yom Ha'atzmaut for those that agree with that.
Hallel is consecutive chapters of.
Yes. Yeah. It's consecutive Psalms. It's not like a selection. It's not a. It's consecutive. It's 113. So including some that are very short, like Hallelujah Adonai Kol Goim Shachvu Kol Ha'omin K'Kvar Eloheinu Chesdo. I mean, praise God all nations. It's like 3 verses and that's it. That's all.
That's at the end of the Psalms or in the middle of one?
It's in the middle towards the end. The book has 150. 113 to 118. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's where I'm going to go into.
Yeah. All of the sages, so Dr. Kolb, agree that the seder, the Hallel, is split into two parts. So we say we have to split it. The first part is recited before the meal, and the rest is recited after the meal. The disagreement is over how much is recited before, and the second section of the Mishnah concerns the formula of the blessing recited after this part of the Hallel is recited. So we finish the Hallel, we said this blessing of redemption, and we drink the wine, and then we continue with the rest.
Now eat.
Now we eat, exactly. Exactly. When are we eating? When are we eating? Yeah, that's it.
You have to watch your.
Yeah. Now, Dr. Kolb brings the explanation they give in the Talmud about the difference between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. Beit Shammai says that before the meal is eaten, but it's still relatively early hour in the evening, they should not recite Psalm 114, because what it says there, when Israel went forth from Egypt, Betet Israel Mimitzrayim. Why not? Because in the terms of the narrative of the Haggadah, the children of Israel have not left Egypt yet. So we shouldn't say Betet Israel, we haven't left Egypt yet. It's too early in the Haggadah in the evening to say it. And Beit Hillel, from the other side, said that the children of Israel did not leave until the daybreak. Because, right, we know from the whole night passed, and then the next day in the morning they left. So that means that we shouldn't say the Psalm 114 until the daybreak. We should wait all the night and then only send this in. That would be absurd. Is it rather, since they began to tell the story of the Exodus before the actual Exodus was happening, they may recite 114. We already started talking about this, so it's fine. That's the explanation of this disagreement between them. Yeah. Okay, so now we're gonna go to the second text. We finish that one. Now we're starting the lesson of this week. I love it how I always, I'm always late. I was teaching things from last week.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, so wait. I'm missing pages. Oh. No, just I printed 5 copies and I don't know where they are. No, but it's weird. I printed 5 copies. All right. I'm gonna have one. I have half here. Oh, that's strange. All right. No, I have it here. I don't have the problem. You guys have it. So well, there's another half there. You can use it for the beginning. Yeah. Okay. Anyway. So now we're something about the orders we haven't realized. And now we're going to start in the next Mishnah. The next Mishnah is the 7th Mishnah of the chapter of Pesachim. And we're going to speak already about the 3rd cup and the katamazon. So when do we eat? We miss the food. Right, in the last Mishnah, we just say Hallel. What is the food? Thank you. That we should do, definitely. Thank you.
Preferably for midnight.
Probably for a minute. We didn't, I suppose, stop reading of it, but actually it was in one of the Mishnayot much before, when it said they bring in front of him. We said in the okay, I'm gonna look for it. We said in the one of the Mishnayot from the last time. And that they brought in front of him the dip and the lettuce and matzah and charoset, b'shnei tavshilin, and 2 cooked dishes. That's the meal. So in the time of the Mishnah, it looked that they had the meal in a much earlier part of the seder than we do today. They ate together with the whole matzah, maror, inyanim, and then the most of the reciting of whatever was after the meal. So the order was different.
But they had the blessing for the meal. Then
No, they haven't done because they're still eating, right? So they haven't done the blessing. That we're gonna do now, but they ate the meal before.
they eat without the blessing.
No. This is the blessing after the meal. So it's fine. You can do it later. You don't have to do it immediately after you finish eating. But the thing is that they cooked before. They ate their meal before, in an earlier part of the seder that we do today. I think maybe I said it last time when we read it that probably the change has to do with us having less patience for the whole thing. So we will have the dinner like at the beginning of the seder, but we wouldn't do the rest of the seder. As actually happens, a lot of people like read the Haggadah until the meal, and then that's it, and that's where they stop. They don't do the rest of it. So if the rest of it will be all of it, if we do it like in the Mishnah, or most of it. Right. So that's the. So now, having done that, the Mishnah says they pour for the leader the 3rd cup of wine. Pour, remember we explained about it, like mixing, right? The water and wine to produce the alcohol. And he recites the blessing over his food, and that's when he does Birkat Hamazon, the blessing over the grace after meals, over the cup. And next, they're pouring the 4th cup after Birkat Hamazon. They do the 4th cup, and he completes Hallel over it, and that's where he completes. Remember, like pay attention. It says complete because we already started. We just had to complete it. We did the first 2. So we complete the Hallel over the 4th cup. The Omer alav Birkat Hashir, and he's gonna say over it Birkat Hashir, the blessing of the song. What is the blessing of the song? Maybe some of you know it because today for us it's very clear what is Birkat Hashir. It's a part of the service. It's a part that we say Nishmat. It starts with Nishmat Kol Chai. That we say it every Shabbat morning. Nishmat Kol Chai. That's Birkat Hashir. In their time, it was not so clear, so they will discuss what is Birkat Hashir. And then it starts something interesting. You know, a lot of times, every year, people in my family ask, "Wait, can I have another cup of wine?" So it says during the period between these cups, the first 3, if one wishes to drink more, he may drink. Between the 3rd and the 4th cup, one should not drink. So meaning, until the end of the dinner, you can have as much wine as you want, at least the 3 cups, but you can have more than one. After the 3rd, you can't. You're gonna have the 4th cup, and that's it. And then you shouldn't have more. We're gonna read it in a moment with the why, but anyone has an idea why? It's very logical. This is not spiritual, not religious. It's like logic.
They'll be too drunk to.
There you go. That's it. As you're eating, the food helps you like not get drunk. Sort the food. The moment we stop eating, if you have too much wine, then you're gonna get drunk. You won't be able to finish the sandwich. Not the whole thing. So they're pouring a 3rd cup. So Dr. Kulp says they're pouring a 3rd cup, blesses over his meal. So Birkat Hamazon is recited over a 3rd cup of wine. According to the Mishnah and the Talmud, Birkat Hamazon is normally recited over a cup of wine. They wouldn't just say like we do. They will take a cup of wine, like a little bit like Kiddush, and say Birkat Hamazon over the cup of wine. And that was the custom. And the whole cup of wine will do it. Today, most people do it only in one occasion. Any idea? Think about an occasion where you saw people do Birkat Hamazon with a cup of wine.
Weddings.
Sheva brachot. 7 blessings. Up to this day, in a wedding, the Birkat Hamazon is said over actually 2 cups of wine. Because 1 cup of wine is the person that is leading the Birkat Hamazon. Another cup of wine is a cup for the Sheva Brachot, and then they mix the two, and that's why the couple drink to get all the blessings. That's the idea. But in the time of the Talmud, it was a normal procedure. That's what you do. You do Birkat Hamazon, you do it over a cup of wine. Today, we don't do this. We do it only for most of us, we do it only for the seder or weddings. There are some people in the Orthodox world that still do it, especially Eastern Europe, especially like Hasidic. They still do Birkat Hamazon, at least in Shabbat, over a cup of wine. But most people don't. Most people don't do that anymore.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
That was the custom when I was living when I was a teenager. I was living in Costa Rica, and I would go to an Orthodox shul that they were like Yotzei Polin, they were Poland. So they will do it like that at the end of the Kiddush. That was a Kiddush that was like in America, it was an actual lunch with cholent and everything. So you didn't need to eat afterwards. And they will do Birkat Hamazon with a cup of wine.
What I understood is you still, when everyone starts saying that you're kind of a zone, say it because you haven't finished what you want.
Yeah, that's fine.
And so you only say they're going to go after you or anyone has finished eating. But then a cup of wine would be after or during would be like.
Yeah, but that cup of wine, is like it's a little bit, it's a bit like Kiddush. It's a way of, it's like a channel for the blessing. Like the same reason we say Kiddush over a cup of wine as well. We say Kiddush, just say it. We just say like a prayer to sanctify the day, but we do it over a cup of wine, not the custom. We use it as a conduct, as the same idea with the Birkat Hamazon. A 4th cup says we conclude the Hallel. So the 4th cup is recited over the recitation of the Hallel. In the Talmud, there's a debate that's what we said, over what is Birkat Hashir, what is the blessing of the song. Some say it is Nishmat Kol Chai, the one that we know, a prayer recited during the morning praise of Shabbat and festivals. Another say it is Yalelucha Hashem Elokeinu, which is a prayer recited at the end of Hallel on other occasions. Today we do both. Again, you are right and you are right. You can still in the Haggadah if you want at the end. You have to go all the way to the end, like after Birkat Hamazon. You want to see it in the Haggadah? After Birkat Hamazon, we have the Elijah's cup. After Elijah's cup, we have the Hallel. And at the end of the Hallel, we have the Yalelucha Hashem Elokeinu Kol Ma'asecha, the one that we're talking here. That we always say at the end of the Hallel. Like every time we do the Hallel finishes with that. But in Pesach, we also add Hallel HaGadol, the Kilo Olam Chazdor, like Psalm 136, and Nishmat Kol Chai. So actually, if you do everything, it's quite a bit of prayer at the end of the Seder. You finish saying all that, and only then you drink the 4th cup at the end of all that. And then between the cups, that what we said before, between these cups, if he wants, he may drink. Between the 3rd and the 4th, he may not drink. Already explained that. So between the 2nd and 3rd cups, it's permitted to drink, but that's the time when the meal is consumed, and therefore you could have extra cups during the meal itself. It's forbidden to drink between the 3rd and the 4th, lest he gets drunk and he's not able to complete the Seder. The rabbi thought that drinking alcohol while eating will not cause one to get drunk. That is not, that it is true to a point. Of course, if you drink 10 cups of wine, you're gonna get drunk anyway. But when you drink when you eat, then of course it's you don't get as drunk as you stop eating. And
The Hallel,
right,
this is
that's in the Hallel. That's the Psalms.
that's the, I don't know, after the meal? Or-
After the meal, you finish the meal, we do Birkat Hamazon. After Birkat Hamazon, we do the Hallel.
Hallelujah, well, right,
That's the same thing. They just wrote it like that.
okay, but.
We start with Lo Lanu Hashem Lo Lanu.
This,
No, the continuation.
well, that,
Is a continuation. I mean, we did 113 and 114
doesn't have.
before, right? So now we are doing 115, 115, 116, 117, 118, and then the part that we read, the Yalelucha Hashem Elokeinu, at the end.
It has a notation for the first two sounds, which sounds they were, but the second time through here, it doesn't mention.
Interesting. Interesting. They were mentioning to the. I know the editors, so we were mentioning.
So this is the Kilo Olam Hazon is part of it?
That's it's a different psalm. It's not part of the Hallel. It was just added later because why not? And then you have the Birkat Hashir, the Nishmat Kol Chai, all the way to the end, and then Borei Pri Hagaf. Okay, so the last Mishnah is not about the seder itself. We already finished the seder. It's about like an extra addendum, like an extra thing to consider it during the seders. So it says, and one does not conclude after the partial land with an afikuman. En maftirin achara pesach afikuman. It's not very clear what it means. We're going to go back to that. If some of the participants at the seder fall asleep, it never happens, thereby interrupting their meal, they may eat from the lamb when they awake. So we're having seder together, and I start falling asleep, and then I wake up, so that I can still have from the lamb, from the sacrifice, not all of it. If the entire company fell asleep, they may not eat anymore. We all fall asleep, so we don't have more of sacrifice. The sacrifice is done. Whatever is left, we have to burn it. Then the next day.
No, that's good.
No leftovers. Yeah, Pesach, there are no leftovers.
No, that's good.
Maybe chicken or turkey rather for.
Yeah.
Couldn't finish the whole turkey.
What is the idea? What is the idea here? That if they fall asleep, it's considered like a complete interruption. It's like we finish our meal, and it will be like having another meal. It's like having Pesach in two different places, and that's not allowed.
That's a difficult thing because what's called post-prandial dip. When you're eating, your blood is dedicating to digesting and not to thinking, and so you start getting drowsy.
Mm-hmm.
And after all those cups of wine, I'm drowsy or more. So on top of that,
Yeah, I think, well, no, there's a reason it's written in the Mishnah. They knew that happens to people.
yeah.
The thing is that they say, I mean, not all of you guys at the same time, like take turns or something. I don't know. Don't fall asleep together. Rabbi Yosei says if they doze, they may eat from the lamb when they are awake. I mean, those in Hebrew, leinamnem. I mean, the you can still do. But if they fell fast asleep, then they might not. So that's the thing. Yeah, if you're getting starting to snore, then that's it. Thank you. That's what marks the difference. So Dr. Kobe will say, I mean, when he said, this is very interesting because this is a little completely out of our understanding. When about the Afikoman. So Shaul Lieberman, he was one of the great, if not the greatest, Talmudic scholar of the 20th century. Was a teacher in the Masorti conservative Jewish seminary in New York. he explained that afikoman is not the matzah that we eat today. Afikoman, when the rabbi think of afikoman, they're not thinking about the little piece of matzah that we have in the seder today, and the kids fine and all that. El afikoman, it refers to a Greco-Roman custom. They had the custom to engage in more merrymaking at the end of the symposium. I mean, remember that the symposium was a formal meal. The seder is built in the image of the symposium, and the whole order, the formal meal in the Greek and Roman world. So in the Greek Roman world, after we finish the meal, so we already discussed where we have to discuss and finish eating, then you will go from house to house drinking and having fun. That was part of it. We finish here, then we go to the neighbors. Hey! Like we were like bar hopping, because that was the idea. So the rabbi didn't want the Jews to do this. They prohibited this custom. That's what they're saying. And they want a Jew to stay. They say the Jews should discuss the laws of Pesach and the story of the Exodus until the morning prayers. Therefore, we have all those parts that we don't have in the Mishnah yet, but we'll have later in the Haggadah. But the rabbis, they study all night, and the kids come to tell them there's it's time to read to say the Shema. But they didn't want just to spend the whole night like partying, pretty much. And there was a place to think that they might do it, because if we're doing this in image of the symposium, that's what you do in the symposium. You finish eating, then you go out to go to the neighbors. So, as an aside, the fact that the rabbis had to assert the differences between the seder and the symposium even strengthens more the theory that the two were essentially not all that different. They were very similar, and that's the reason they have to make an emphasis on the differences between them. And in essence, the seder was a Jewish symposium, and the Talmud split the Afikoman in two ways. It says it means that one should not go from one house to the other. That's the first thing. And the second thing, it may mean that one should not eat anything after eating the Pesach. That stayed with us. That is up to this day. When we eat our version of the Afikoman, that is the matzah, the rule is that we are supposed to eat the matzah, and then we can't eat anything else except for the 2 cups of wine to complete the seder. And Professor Lieberman explained that both are referring to the Greek custom of merrymaking, and the food which the Talmud prescribes were meant to whet one's appetite. The idea was it will go up, they will eat more, and then even more have time, willing to go and party. The last thing, when I'm finishing with this for today, so about the second part of the Mishnah, Rabbi Kolb says, this is some of them fall asleep, they may eat, the part of this that we read before. This section deals with the laws concerning the Pesach sacrifice. If some of the members of the Chabura, the eating company, fell asleep during the meal, when they wake up, they may continue to eat the Pesach because other people stay awake the whole time. So this is important also to mention, in the time when there was a sacrifice, there was no seder as we know it. It was just like a meal. So you have a meal, you have wine, you sing, you eat the Pesach, you eat matzah, you eat maror. So the question, when the dinner is over, when this Pesach dinner is over, midnight, or if everyone fell asleep. There were the two situations. Any one of the two, or everyone fell asleep. Those were the two situations. In any of those two situations, you had to stop the meal, and the meal had to be burned. You couldn't continue. Okay, Moshe, good to see you. Anyway, you won't miss much. We're gonna finish in a couple of minutes. And not say the eating of the Afikoman. Today we have this idea that we have to eat the Afikoman. That there's some idea in the Haggadah that because it's Afikoman is remembering the Pesach sacrifice, so we have to eat it by midnight. Also, with question.
Also, question: very northern, very southern parts of the planet, the sun doesn't set. Well, the southern part would be the spring and the fall, be about the same. But especially the daylight savings time in England, the sun would set for like 9:30, so you don't have a lot of time to get to the Afikoman. That's why it's called Ushmidai, because you have your Falah thought
What is the lucky midnight? And Jewish time was a little different. In Jewish time, the day always have 24 hours. In every, I mean, sorry, I will. That's also true in Jewish calendar, the night always have 12 hours, and the day also always have 12 hours. The day is divided equally. But the thing is that the hours don't last the same. Because again, in summer, the hours are longer. In winter, the hours are shorter. Depending, right, night or day, depending which time of the year. So the night, how do you know the night? You have to take the time of sunset, the time of sunrise. You take the amount of time, that's it. Right, and divide by 12, right. And then the middle of that, that's midnight. Well, but still in England, you're right, it will be in England. It will be because sunset will be like at 9:30, and then the sunrise will be also like 6 in the morning. In England, during the summer, it's like there's almost no dark, there's very little dark. So there will be it's a very short night, like 9 hours, 45, like 1 in the morning.
45 minutes per hour.
Yeah.
So 6 times 3 morning. I just think between sunset and sunrise, halfway between the two, it's likely coming around midnight on our regular clock.
Most times, in most places, except for yeah.
So, I mean, it would tell you, 9 to 6, that's 9 hours, so it'll have to be 4.5, it'd be 1:30 in the morning. All right. Okay.
In any case, guys, none of us are willing to go to sleep that late.
30 in the morning, finish the afternoon.
Yeah. And
That's so here, that's the end of the equinox. So that's there, you have 12 hours, and so that's why I wouldn't do that.
yeah. Okay, guys, I think we're gonna stop here. So we also have a few left for next week. So next week we finish the Mishnah. Yeah, remind me.
Yeah.
We finish the Mishnah. So next week, what we're gonna do is to start looking at the parts of the seder that were added later on, like for example, Alachma, the 4 sons, all those little parts of the seder that were added later on. They were not part of the original Mishnah. I'm gonna try to understand how they got there, and hopefully we'll have time also to speak a little bit about modern innovations in the Haggadah, like for example, the people that put an orange on the Haggadah and all those things are more modern.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's in Aramaic, so that has been a different period.
It's in Aramaic, but it is not an old song. Yeah, we got to that, hopefully.
In this one.
Yeah.
there are lots of,
Well, anyway, Mark, be well. Thank you for being here,
Thank you.
and we'll meet hopefully next week.
Thank you very much, Rabbi.
Take care.
You too.